The sooner you learn this, the sooner people will stop disappointing you. The sooner you will stop having these emotional reactions to what other people are doing around you. The manual is a tool that we learn to help us understand how we have expectations and we have scripts in our brains for how other people should behave. If you are carrying around a manual in your brain about how other people should think, feel, what they should do, what they should say, and basically how they should behave and treat you and the things that they should do for you. If you're not sharing this with them, then you're living in your manual.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornis, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
Okay, let me ask you a question today. How frustrating is it for you when people do not do what you expect them to do? Is that frustrating? I mean, it's very hard to be in relationship with people that don't live up to the expectations that we have for them. And then when they don't live up to the expectations we have for them, we can get sad or frustrated. We can get those feelings of not being appreciated, feeling like we're being taken advantage of. This is a little tough love today. And what we call this out there in the certified thought work and mind management coaching realm is called the manual. So if you are ready to learn about why you get so frustrated and upset and all of the other emotions that you feel when other people don't meet your expectations, then this is the episode for you. Are you ready? Let's go.
Okay, so what is the manual? The manual is a tool that we learn to help us understand how we have expectations and we have scripts in our brains for how other people should behave.
All of these ideas on what other people should do, how they should treat us, how they should behave, what their actions should be, the things that they should say to us, the feelings they should have, the way they should express themselves, the tone they should use. Just, we have literally a giant home in our brains based in nothing
that tells everybody in the world how they should behave, what they should do, and the expectations that we expect them to live up to. But here's the catch. Rarely do we tell people about this manual. Rarely do we sit down and read it together with somebody. Rarely do we show others the chapter they're in that explains exactly what we want from them. And then when people don't live up to this manual that we have, we get upset. We get frustrated. We feel unloved. We feel unappreciated. We feel taken advantage of or taken for granted. All of these things. All because we have a thing in our brains that our brain made up. Again, it's just like thoughts that aren't real. The manual in our brains about how other people should behave is something our brains have made up because of our stories and our personal experiences and the opinions we were raised to believe, the social locations we come from, our culture, the socialization that we have grown up in and have been steeped in our entire lives. That is what the manual is. As soon as you understand that you have a manual for everybody in your life, everybody has a chapter in it. The sooner you understand this, the sooner you can stop letting people upset you. So in the manual, we have all these ideas on how people should behave. And we don't share it often when we write it down in our manual. We create the chapter, we create the expectations, we have the to-do list, the action items, the goals, the outcomes we expect. And how often is that shared with the person we're talking about? We expect others to know this manual, and we expect others to follow this manual. And if you really give this some thought, it's banana pants, right? It's bonkers to have all these expectations of other people, and then we don't even share it with them. But we get mad when they don't follow the manual. You know, we're just walking around this world expecting everybody to live up to the manual that we have written out for them in our brains. And if they don't, we get emotional. We get upset. We have thoughts. Our brain spits out thoughts at us that are not based in anything because the manual is not based in anything. It's not based in fact. And what's the funniest part of this that cracks me up now that I've learned this, everybody has their own manual and they're all different. They could not be any more different from one another. Absolutely different. So what my manual says about how you should behave is probably in direct contradiction to what your manual says about how I should behave. And where did these come from? Who says what is right about how we should behave? What is right behavior when it comes to relationships? How do we decide how you should treat me, how I should treat you as far as expectations? Now, again, every caveat of every show that I do,
I am not talking about significant mental health issues that need clinical support. I'm not talking about abusive behavior. Those things, you need professionals and you need to seek help right away. And if you need some help in any of those departments, please DM me or tag me and let me know or leave a comment and I'll get you some support. So I'm talking about high functioning frustration with other people when other people don't meet our expectations. And then we end up frustrated. We're ruminating. Why didn't they do this? Why didn't they do that?
it's bananas. To have these types of expectations of other people is absolutely setting yourself up for disaster. It's not fair to other people and it's not fair to yourself. So the sooner that you can identify that your brain is carrying around a gigantic tome of expectations of other people in your manual that you rarely, if ever, share with other people, the sooner you learn this, the sooner people will stop disappointing you. The sooner you will stop having these emotional reactions to what other people are doing around you. Now, you may say it's happening to you, but it's not. It's a neutral circumstance happening outside of you and you are interpreting it through your brain, then having thoughts that are creating feelings. And it's all based on your manual. We have to start to look at our manual. We all have these rules. We all have these expectations. And when they're not followed, we're upset. And one of the best parts of all of this, you think you're right in your manual, in your expectations of other people. You think you're right. I think I'm right. Everybody thinks they're right. And yet every manual is probably in direct contradiction to one another. So we really, really have to focus on that if we're having trouble getting along with others. If we're in relationships we want to be in, but we're struggling because people aren't doing what we want them to do, especially if you don't tell them what it is that you want in the first place. If you're expecting people to read your mind and follow your manual because you think you're right, that again is a recipe for a miserable life. And who wants that? Who wants to be miserable? So if you're in the camp who doesn't want to be miserable in your relationships, then you're my people who need to start understanding what the manual is. Maybe we can start with a relationship or a situation maybe that you had recently where somebody disappointed you. One really great exercise is just to simply write down all of your expectations of that person. What are the things you are absolutely sure you are right about when it comes to how people should behave? What are those things? And what is and is not negotiable to you? And second, what of those things have you shared with that person? Does that person understand what your expectations are? What your manual says about the chapter that is about them? Do they understand that? If this person followed your manual completely to the T, how would you feel about them? And if they didn't follow it at all, how would you feel about them? How do you feel about them if you throw the manual out and don't think about it for a minute? Is this still somebody that you want to be in relationship with? So you have to think about all of these different pieces when it comes to relationships. So the most important thing about understanding the manual is for you to see how you're setting yourself up to feel miserable. Because what are the chances of this person, A, knowing what your manual says about them, and B, even if they did, what are your chances they're actually going to follow it the way you want them to? This is important information when it comes to being in a relationship with somebody you want to do that heavy lifting to be in relationship with, because relationships are hard. And then we have all this weird brain stuff where we have the manual written with all the expectations of how others should behave. You're setting yourself up for sadness. You're setting yourself up to feel unloved, unappreciated, taken advantage of, taken for granted, because other people are not living up to your expectations of them. And your expectations of them are not real. They're not fact. They're not right. You get to decide what's right. You, me, them. Who decides? Who's the decider in what is right, in what is appropriate expectations and behavior of other people? So I know now you're like, okay, well, then what do I do? All right. So the next piece that we would teach about the manual is what we call a want map. So what this is about is autonomy. What this is about is learning that my feelings do not rely upon your behavior. Your feelings do not rely on my behavior. You are not responsible for my feelings. I am not responsible for your feelings. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You're going to do what you're going to do. And then in between that, what we want to find are our want matches. The things that you want and the things that I want match. And not everything's going to match, but there is going to be, if you make a list of expectations and priorities in your relationship, whatever that relationship is we're talking about, there's want matches in there. So identifying the want match is what's important here, because then you're both on the same page. You both want the same things in certain areas. But this cuts both ways, because other people have a manual about how you should behave. And that's frustrating too, because you are your own person and you get to decide what is and is not appropriate behavior for yourself when it comes to other people. You have that right to behave based on your own manual, right? Now, the better you understand you have one, the less likely you're going to be so austere about it. And you're going to begin to understand why you have expectations of people, where they come from, nowhere. I mean, yeah, through the lens of your brain and your story and all of this, but it's not based in fact, is what I mean. People do not have to follow your manual. And when they don't, they're not wrong and you're not right, and vice versa. When you don't follow other people's invisible and, manual they never told you about, you're not wrong either. It's just a thing our brains made up about how we expect other people to behave. And again, this goes back to the hunter-gatherer times when everybody needed to comply and when everybody needed to be accepted for survival. We don't live in those times anymore. And we don't need people to comply with the things we think are right. And we don't need to comply with the things other people think are right about our behavior. That is not something that is a thing anymore. And when we continue to live by the rules of our manual, and I'm not kidding, it's like all the time, people do not tell other people their expectations. They just get mad. And then there's a fight about, well, you didn't, blah, blah, blah. That's not productive because other people don't read minds. I mean, I've yet to meet a human that can read my mind. Now, I've met people that I'm like on the same wavelength with, right? But people can't read my mind. They have no idea what expectations I have of them unless I tell them. And that's a hard thing to remember in every relationship all the time with every circumstance and situation. So the first thing you have to ask yourself when you're dealing with somebody who seemingly has let you down or hasn't met your expectation, you have to ask yourself, is this written in the manual and have you told them about it? Because if not, that is on you. That is not them. And you're not right. And they're not wrong. Again, vice versa. If somebody is mad at you about your behavior and they never shared their expectation with you, you are not wrong and they are not right. Because who decides wrong and right when it comes to this stuff, right? Now, obviously, there are social norms that people should follow to be in society, right? And to be in relationship with other people in a healthy and functioning way. So I'm assuming that's what we're dealing with here when we're talking about this. So if you are carrying around a manual in your brain about how other people should think, feel, what they should do, what they should say, and basically how they should behave and treat you and the things that they should do for you. If you're not sharing this with them, then you're living in your manual and you're setting yourself up for awful emotion, for awful physiological feelings that you have that are going to just drive you bonkers. And you're going to have a hard time getting along with people because they're not meeting your expectations. If you're dealing with somebody that you're having these struggles with, write down a list of all the expectations that you have of them, all the ways you expect them to behave, what you expect them to say. I mean, everything. Get really detailed and put your manual, move it from your brain onto concrete paper or computer. Take the time to do this if you're struggling with getting along with somebody or maintaining a relationship or someone keeps disappointing you and you really like this person. Like, that's the thing. Do you want to continue the relationship? If you do, then you need to address the fact that you probably have a manual for them. So here's an example. Let's say your mother wants you to call her every day, but what if you don't want to talk to somebody every day? Well, maybe she has a manual, and in her chapter that is about you, she has the expectation based on her own experience and story, how she was raised, socialization, it's normal for you to call her every day. And when you don't, it hurts her feelings, right? But maybe you did not see the family of origin she was raised in, and you had different experiences that your brain sees the world through. And maybe you just have a disposition that you don't feel like talking to somebody every day, You just want to call them when something happens. You want to update them, something's going on. Some people like to talk every day, but, I'm a introverted extrovert and I recharge with alone time. And then I can go out and be super extroverted, but I have to recharge with alone time. So if I was expected to call somebody every single day who was not my husband, we would probably have an issue because I'm not doing that. And I've met people in my life that had those types of expectations for me. I'll give you another example. I was raised in a family, and this is probably going to be shocking to many of you. I didn't know it was a big deal. I was raised in a family that does not care about cards. Yeah, like birthday cards, Christmas cards, like the whole thing. We never did cards, ever. I don't remember ever, besides one of my aunts who would, send some money for a birthday, because she lived many states away. I don't remember ever getting birthday cards, anything like that. We did other stuff. We had experiences. We went to places, that was what we did. And that's what I try to do with my family. But once I got in a lot of trouble because I did not give my friend a birthday card. That person was so angry at me. So angry. And we're not in relationship anymore because those expectations were just things I couldn't meet. But I was shocked because I gotten a cool present. Really did. I was out of the country and brought home a cool present that I spent time picking out for my friend. But I didn't get my friend a card to go with the present. Therefore, the present didn't matter. And this was what I was told by my friend. And I was entirely shocked. It never occurred to me to get my friend a birthday card to go with the present. I wasn't raised that way. That's not what we do in my family. We still don't do it. We call each other. We go on trips. We say, do you want to spend money on a present or Do you want to do a family trip this year? I mean, stuff like that, right? That's what we do. It's just not my experience. It's not right, but it's not wrong. And that friend at the time had such a high expectation of me and never shared it with me. And I had no idea. And that was the beginning of the end of a relationship because I just got tired of not being able to meet the expectations. And so I just stopped. And that's what's important about learning the manual is if you're in important relationships that you want to sustain, then you need to understand your side of the street. They're going to have a manual too, but it is not your responsibility for them to figure that out, for them to have particular feelings, to do things. You're not responsible for their behavior, for their feelings, for their thoughts, for their expectations of you. So if you don't meet them, there's nothing wrong with you and they're not right. And if they don't meet yours, there's nothing wrong with them and you're not right. Unless, of course, you've had the conversation, which goes back to the want map. Now, if my friend and I had said, hey, I really like birthday cards with every present. And I said, well, I don't really like to pick out birthday cards. I'm not good at it, but I want the relationship and I want to try. Now I know I'll go try to buy a birthday card for you and I'll spend time like I did with the gift, picking one out and writing a thoughtful message because that's what was meaningful to her was the message, right? If you want to maintain or sustain a relationship that you're in where you're having sort of, difficulty talking, relating, sharing, often it's because you have expectations of other people. So what we want to do is write down these expectations. If it's a relationship you're struggling with that you want to sustain, you want to maintain, write down your expectations, and then you have to talk about them. And you have to find your want matches. You have to find the things that match your wants with their wants. And then those are the things that you focus on, that you cultivate, that you nurture, right? It's like finding things in common with other people. These are the things I want. These are the things you want. We can agree upon them and we can do them for one another. But otherwise, you need to take care of what you want. And I need to take care of what I want. So if I want something from you, then I have to tell you that's what I want. And you have to reciprocate that. That's a want match. And those are the things that we have to identify. Write them down and see where those matches are. I take care of my wants. You take care of your wants. And then we find where we match in the middle. My expectations of you are for you to be who you want you to be. Okay, I'm going to say that again. My expectations of you are for you to be who you want to be, not who I want you to be. Because that goes right back to this number one lesson, right? That we cannot change other people's thoughts, feelings, actions, their words, their expectation. We can't change any of that about other people. But if my want is for you to be who you want to be, then that's different, right? The problem is that this is cultivating dishonesty. It's lying. It is. You will people please me. You will do things that you do not want to do just to make me happy with the pretense that your actions are responsible for my feelings. To get that, you are doing things you don't want to do because you feel responsible to make me happy. And you're responsible for my feelings based on your action. That's not true. That's not a want match. That is full on people pleasing. Sometimes it can go into gaslighting, and it leads ultimately to resentment, because who wants to be doing a bunch of stuff that they don't want to be doing just to make somebody else happy? It gets old quickly. I need to know what your needs are. You need to know what the other person's needs are. And then you need to decide if you can meet some or all of them. Otherwise, you have people doing lots of stuff that they don't want to do, and resentment is what's cultivated instead of a healthy relationship. And there's so much drama with this that can be avoided. There's people in relationships all the time that feel like they're failing and they really want it to work. But it's because they have expectations from their manual about other people that they don't tell them about. And then they're not met because that person thinks they are entirely right. Someone else should have read their mind and they should be behaving in a certain way. Otherwise, they're just not good, blah, 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 right? It's just not a good fit. If you sat down and talked about it, if you were to have a conversation over coffee or lunch and say, why don't you tell me some of the expectations you have? Now, probably later in a relationship, if it's romantic, right? Like maybe not the first date, hi, how are you? What's your name? What are your expectations of me? Hey, that's a little weird. But, I have expectations of my family, my immediate family that live in my home with me. And I don't always share them unless I'm angry because they haven't done what I expect. If you don't tell people, you expect them to do whatever. I don't know. I put all your laundry in a basket and I expect you to take it to your room and put it away. Well, if I don't share that, my kids have tunnel vision, man. Just like selective hearing, they have selective seeing. And we have a joke in my family. It's like, if I have to go find something for you and I find it, which I always do, you owe me $5 and it goes in a bucket. And I'm going to be the richest lady alive because every 5 minutes somebody can't find something and it takes me 30 seconds to walk in and oh, there it is, because you have selective seeing. So I have to say, you see the basket in front of you? Right there? Where? By your feet. Look down. Put it away. But if I'm expecting children to just automatically know that this basket is A, their clothes, and B, they should put it away, not mom, then I'm going to be mad a lot, right? It's worth the conversation just to make sure everybody's on the same page. And if there's a big expectation that you expect a 40th birthday party, you expect an engagement party. I don't know. I mean, whatever it is, you were raised a certain way to believe in certain things. I was raised a certain way to believe in certain things, to have certain things important to me. Behaviors, actions, words, whatever they are. But if you were not raised in the belief system that I was raised in, and the expectation belief system and ideology that I was raised in, how would you know? And you cannot read my mind. My responsibility is not for your feelings. My responsibility is for my feelings. And the only way that I can protect those feelings is if I'm clear with you on what it is I expect. And a lot of times we don't know this until the expectation hasn't been met. And that's okay. We have to have grace and compassion, and we have to have conversations about expectations that aren't met. My friend with the birthday card, if she had sat down and said, hey, I'm disappointed that you didn't give me a birthday card, I could have said to her, it never occurred to me That's not what I believe to be important about showing you that I love you on your happy birthday, right? And she could have said, oh, well, every year I got 700 birthday cards and I got to read all of these lovely messages. And it always made me feel so great that I now expect everybody under the sun to write to me about how special I am and how amazing I am. And it makes me feel good. And I'd have been like, oh, well, I think you're amazing and I think you're special. So let me go get you a birthday card and write it out for you. And if you don't tell me it's important to you, then how do I know? And second of all, if you get mad and storm out, and I have no idea why, really. I mean, I know you yelled at me because I didn't get a birthday card, but I don't understand it. And then you don't give me an opportunity to explain to you that never occurred to me. Then we lose the relationship. That's drama that could have easily been avoided. And that relationship, could be healthy today, and it's not, which is sad. So that's just an example of how the manual works in our lives, how we have expectations of other people, and how you think you're responsible for how I feel, and how I feel I'm responsible for how you feel. And that's not true. You're responsible for what you want. I'm responsible for what I want. If I want something, I have to do the thing to make sure I get it. Part of that is conversation, especially when the first time it's not met. That's not the last straw. That's the first straw. That's your clue that there has not been clear communication, right? You don't get to just get up and storm out. Now, obviously, if it's inappropriate, if it's something that you are not willing to negotiate, great. If this is non-negotiable for you and it's happened once, then that's different. But if it's something that you could sit down and have a conversation with and say, this really hurt my feelings. My feelings are not right or wrong. They're just mine, but they hurt my feelings. This was my expectation. And then that person could say, oh, I didn't know. And here's my story why. Or they could say, well, I didn't do it because I knew and I didn't care. Or they could say, I can't meet that expectation. Are you going to be okay if I don't meet that expectation? Because I don't want to. I don't want to talk to you every day or whatever it is. And then that person gets to decide whether that is or is not acceptable to them. You're not responsible for how they feel or their outcome or their choice. And you can't make it change anyway. There's nothing you could do to create an outcome that you want when it comes to somebody else's behavior and their decisions and their actions. So if somebody says, well, you're not able to meet this expectation, but I expect it, then that's not a want match. And that may be something that is non-negotiable. And that's okay. We have to let other people be who they want to be. And it's our responsibility to have clarity. And it's our responsibility for those in our lives who do not understand thought work and mind management to be extra clear, to carry more weight, more of the burden, to do more heavy lifting, to do more of the quote, healthy behavior. And that's not to say the other person is not healthy. What I'm saying is you're the one who knows the coaching here, right? You're the one who knows the strategy. You're the one who now holds in your heart the model tool, right? You're the one who understands that you have expectations of others that they don't know about. And now that you know that, you can help have healthier relationships by helping other people understand this. And how do we do that? We model it. We are examples of it. That's how we change the world. That's how we change other people. When someone else has an experience with you, right, that is entirely different from experiences they've had with others in other relationships. When you sit and listen and ask questions, because you've trained yourself, you've done the work, you've done the discipline, you have created brand new neural pathways in your brain, instead of reacting to people not living up to your expectations and it being the last straw, you understand it's the first straw, and you're going to respond to somebody not living up to your expectations by asking questions, by saying, this was important to me. Why is it not important to you? What's your story, or what happened? Or, were you raised this way? Well, what do you do instead? Okay, well, you don't give cards, but you bake birthday cake. Well, how cool is that? I want you to bake me a birthday cake. Maybe I'll negotiate my cards so you bake me a birthday cake. I think that's cool. So I wasn't raised in a home that made, homemade birthday cakes, and you weren't raised in a home that gives out birthday cards with beautiful little, meaningful paragraphs on it. It's okay. And the more open we are and the more we ask one another about our expectations, the less of a manual we have in that relationship with one another. So what I'm hoping you take away from this is that expectations of others are not real. It's our manual. It's a gigantic tome that our brains have invented. So we have to stop living our lives by this. We have to stop living our lives based on the expectations we have of others, especially if we've not told them about it. So I'm going to have a PDF in the show notes to help walk you through this a little bit more. Grab that, and it's just a little, the manual guide, and I'll have some examples. Great. Well, y'all have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.